So, welcome everyone to day three of the Automatic Clients 7-Day Fast Start. And yeah, welcome. And basically, the purpose of the 7-Day Fast Start series is we realized that the Automatic Clients book is quite long. It's about 340, maybe 360 pages. I can't remember exact length, but this is just a way of kind of giving you a more dimensionalized overview of how the process works and kind of throwing in some nuggets that we didn't really cover in the book. So it's kind of like a non-linear yet linear process of us kind of communicating the methodology that we have for acquiring customers and getting clients. And I think the reason this is really important is because there's a whole lot of people out there actually teaching, how to get customers, get clients. And to be honest with you, I don't know if their stuff works or not. I don't have any experience, but I know our stuff works. And this is just a little differentiation in terms of like helping you be aware of how this works, why it works, and why you should do it. And so you can be, I guess, more educated on what to do and how to do it. So my name is Alan, and we have Robert with us. We created Automatic Clients together, and this is day three. And today we're going to talk about your acquisition offer. Yeah, I think we're on page 4 right now, Robert. Yeah, acquisition offer, right? And so this is this is kind of the tip of the spear, so to say, in your whole business. This thing is what goes out there into the world, on Facebook, on YouTube, on TikTok, on Snapchat, everywhere else. And basically is that interaction with the customer. This is what gets you that customer on the front end, right? And so this is kind of the beginning of the journey for someone to kind of meet you out there in the world and then come back to the back end and buy your high ticket program. So without this, nothing works. And this is probably the most important step in the whole process. So we're going to spend some time on this. And basically, this is about how to architect your acquisition funnel. So we'll talk about that. And so just to give you some overview, I think next slide, Robert, is that on day one, we had the intro to seven-figure economics in the AC model. So we talked about how, you have to architect your economics with the AC model to acquire customers and ascend them into high-ticket clients. Day two, we covered market, superpower, and disruptive idea, how to pick your market, to make sure the market is right for you, how to kind of identify your superpower so it can be aligned with that market, and how to create a disruptive idea to go in that market to get attention so you can actually get sales. So if you guys missed those, go back and watch them. And today it's going to be the acquisition offer, which is your front end, basically starting how to create an offer that makes you money. So with that in mind, and Robert, if you have anything to chime in, just feel free to interrupt me, please. But
Well, two things I want to say before we continue to going. This is, and Alan kind of touched on this, but this is arguably the most important part of any business because you're like it says on the slide here, you're in the customer and client acquisition business first. A business without customers is not a business, right? It's a hobby. And so this is the machine that's going to allow you to actually get new customers, to find out about you, to buy stuff from you without you lifting a finger once the machine is done. So arguably the most important part of the puzzle, because if you don't have this, then the back end doesn't matter. And so it's kind of like in a business, if Alan and I have talked about this too, like if you don't have sales, then in operations, it doesn't matter. There's nothing to operate if you don't have sales. So very important. So that's super, super important. And for those of you guys that are live, just give Alan a happy birthday in the chat, would you? It's his birthday today. And
yeah.
and then with that, let's continue the show. So you're in the customer and client acquisition business first.
Yeah, so thank you guys. Yeah. See, I'm helping you guys on my birthday. How crazy! But I'm gonna take the rest of the day off after this is done. So all right. So whether you like it or not, you're in a customer and client acquisition business first, right? The world is no longer about creating something and then sitting there and people come to you, right? And so basically, like maybe 20 years ago, before the internet, 50 years ago, whatever, you could open a store and people kind of like roll by, walk by, whatever, and come in and do business with you. And that's kind of how it was done, or word of mouth, right? Right now, we're living in an era where you're competing with people from all over the world, right? Robert, there's some noise. Hold on. What is that?
Hold on. How are people? Hold on. Let me just. Yeah, people were allowed to unmute themselves.
Oh, okay,
so
yeah.
that's what happened. But
Yeah,
we're good.
yeah. So the world has changed a lot, right? And so I started doing this stuff in 2004, and there wasn't that many of us back then, right? There was like a handful of guys from United States, a few guys in Canada, some guys in the UK, maybe one guy in Australia or something, right? And it was cool, right? It was nice and easy, right? But now, like today in 2021, you have people, from Nigeria, Ghana, Indonesia, Austria, like, Serbia, Bosnia, Croatia, like all these different countries. And they're really fucking smart too, I'll tell you that much. They're really smart, right? And so they're all competing with you, right? And so you can no longer kind of put up something and wait for people to come by, because that just doesn't work. And also the entire ecosystem of the internet is basically built on the fact that you have to go out there and pay these gatekeepers to acquire the customer, right? Like, so Facebook, Google, YouTube, etc. And the only reason they can be free is because they have an economic engine behind them, which is, ability to sell advertising, right? And so those people that can, buy advertising on those platforms can scale, and that's how those platforms exist in the first place, right? So for example, like, we run a lot of ads, and, we'll have a lot of people, not a lot, but some bitch, say things like, oh, you're in my feed, blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm like, I'm sorry that, you're hanging out on your phone on a platform that costs, $2-3 billion a month to operate or something, so that's basically it. And so with that in mind, you're in a customer and client acquisition business first. You have to be able to go get them without losing money, and then from there you can do a lot, right? But you have to be able to go get the customer first and foremost, right? And so there's this idea. Next slide, please. There's this idea of
Let me just say one thing before you go on.
Sure.
And this is something that Alan brought up as well when we had chats before, and that's, if you don't believe in this, just look around in your industry and you'll see that if you look at the top companies, they are all focused on this. Like, this is their primary focus, is getting customers and clients. So if you look at everybody who's doing well, they all have this as like their number one focus.
Yeah.
All right, continue.
What's interesting about that, to add to that, is like, you have companies that sell for like, a company will be losing money, right? And they'll sell for like $1 billion just because they acquire those customers and users, So there's a lot of value, right? Because everybody knows, like, once you get the customers and users, you can do a lot with them. But if you can't get them, you're not even in the game. You don't have a seat at the table at all, right? You're a spectator. So without having the ability to get customers out there, you're not a player in the game. You're just a pure spectator, right? We're going to watch everybody else make money, get rich, do whatever, right? And so there's the concept here that the market rewards those who can acquire the most customers, right? And basically, you have to look at, like, what does the market value, right? Like, what's the market value? And so a lot of people out there, well, like, the market value is great content. That's true. The market value is this. The market value is that, right? But then we have to look at what does the market reward, right? And basically, the market rewards ability to acquire customers, right? Basically, out there, ability to acquire customers, which means ability to sell, right? And so those who can pay the most to acquire the customers get the most customers. That's the big lesson here, first of all, right? If, for example, let's say, it's us, we're selling a $5 book and some other guy selling a $5 book, right? And we can pay $70 to acquire a customer, and the other guy can pay $30 to acquire a customer. Well, guess what? We can buy all the advertising inventory, and we can get all the customers, And so GE, has this famous saying, General Electric, their whole thing is like, if we can't be number 1 or 2 in a category, we don't want to be in the category, right? And the reason being for that is because, being like number 1 gets like, I think like, 50% of the profits or 60, and then number 2 gets like 20 or 30% of the profits in the industry, and then everybody else like fights over 10%. So if you can't be number 1 or number 2, you're going to expand massive amount of resources for very little reward, which basically takes away resources from doing other things, right? And so those that can pay the most to acquire the customers can be number 1 or number 2, and they get the most customers. It's a winner takes all game, and basically, the truth is the one that breaks the model walks away with the most amount of money, right? And so what I mean by breaks the model, meaning like, there's the model, the current status quo that's being done. So for example, if there's a $5 book or whatever, and you can go pay like $700 to acquire a customer, right? You can kind of be everywhere all the time, right? So there's this talk, a lot of these fancy marketers out there, they'll say, omnipresence and yada, yada, use these very expensive words, right? Like, most people can't afford those fucking words. They're so expensive, right? It's like, when somebody's using those words, you're going to go broke trying to buy them. But basically, omnipresence means being everywhere all at once. But they never tell you how it's done, right? They never tell you how it's done. They just kind of use these very expensive words so they can sell you very expensive shit that you really shouldn't buy, because the problem is they'll never tell you how it's done. It's like a cool theory without application, right? And without application, it's useless. So for us, it's like, here's the application, right? And the application is basically architecting your funnel and everything, so you can go ahead and pay the most amount of money to acquire the customer, right? And so with that in mind, the hardest, the most expensive part of a business, any business, is acquiring a customer, right? And so it's like, you can get them. It's hard to get it. It's cheaper to keep the existing ones and you already paid for than having to acquire the new ones. And so I'm just going off my notes. I'm going to go off the notes a little bit. Yeah, okay. Yeah, and so basically to acquire them, right? And the whole thing is like this, like Facebook, Google, YouTube, etc. They don't really care where the money comes from, right? So they don't care if we spend the money. They don't care if some, drug dealer in some country, takes $1 billion selling drugs and he wants to go buy ads on, he wants to get into this marketing game. He wants to go do offers, and they don't care where the money comes from. They genuinely
By the
don't.
way, I just read that the prince is gonna basically become like a life coach. The Prince Harry. He's like joining some coaching company, so we might have to get him into automatic clients. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, he's not a
so
prince anymore. He's been like kicked out. So
everybody's getting into the game.
yeah. I have no opinion on that beta male.
Well,
Anyway,
let's not go down the rabbit hole.
yeah. And so anyway, he needs to get a coaching program, have to grow some balls. But anyway, basically the thing is, it's like, the application of being able to acquire more customers, basically this concept of maximum lifetime value of a customer, right? Which means like, if you, let's say, for example, most marketers out there, they're like, I want to go make $10,000, per average per customer. Well, they don't realize that unless you have $10,000, you can't, of things to sell, you can't get $10,000 out of a person, right? And so that's like not possible. Like mathematically, it's not possible. So you have to have a maximum lifetime value. So anyway, not to get detracted, basically what I'm saying is the market rewards sales-based innovation, right? And so Peter Drucker famously says the only reason for a company is to like basically innovate. Like companies that innovate stay relevant and they win. And if you look at it, that's true. Apple had to reinvent itself. It keeps innovating. All the companies that innovate, and the reason for innovation is basically because we live in a capitalistic society, and capitalism rewards innovation. Like serve me, give me new stuff, etc. But in our space, inherently, the market doesn't truly reward innovation in terms of content, right, and stuff like that. It rewards innovation in terms of sales mechanics, right? And so that's evident in seeing a bunch of people selling stuff that's really shitty, right? Like when you go buy stuff and it's really bad. Basically, what's happening is the market is rewarding the sales innovation, not necessarily the product. And so, if the product was truly innovation, we could just put up a book and chill, and then everybody would buy it. It'd be great. But the market doesn't, and the reason it doesn't is because of these massive gatekeepers called Facebook, YouTube, and Google that basically control 90% of the world's internet advertising. And so they're like, well, you know what? We need to keep the lights on. We need you to buy our ads. And so therefore, you can't reach the people to value the content. And so to do that, we have to create a machine that allows us to be able to go pay Facebook, Google, and YouTube, and others, to do so, right? And so the market rewards sales-based innovation, and what that simply means, in layman terms, is like creating an offer that they buy at scale, right? And now if the market rewarded content production, meaning just content, then you would see all the YouTubers out there being rich doing nothing. But that's not the case. Typically, the only way YouTubers make money is if guys like us here buy advertising on their channels. If guys like us don't buy advertising on their channels, YouTubers don't make any money. And the reason for that is supply and demand affects content production, right? So content production is basically accelerating to a value of 0, right? And what I mean by that is, like, if you look around, everybody has an iPhone or Android phone, right? And the crazy thing is those phones are really powerful, right? So I can take my iPhone, I can put it on a table, and I can start creating content on YouTube, right? So for example, there's a ton of guys out there that do unboxing videos, for example, right? Well, I can go order things and just stick my phone on top of it, unbox, and do it. And now I'm competing with them. Like, there's 0 barrier to entry. And so what's happening is there's a massive supply of content being produced, but the demand for that content is fixed. And the reason it's fixed is because of something called time. We only have 24 hours in a day, right? And so, for example, let's say you're into cars, right? And you watch car reviews, videos, whatever on YouTube, right? And you have, like, let's say 1 hour a day to watch YouTube videos on cars. What ends up happening is, like, you have a limited amount of time to do it, right? And so you're gonna pick like one video, and there can be like 1,000 of them being produced, but you can only watch one video, and that's it, right? Like, you can watch one video, you can't watch 2, you can't watch 3. So the people who don't get their videos watched basically lose out. But those people that do remain and stuff still have to have one thing. They have to have economic incentive and stuff to basically pay for those videos, right? And that's where we come in, because we buy advertising, right? And so that's why, being a sales-driven organization, you can dictate the supply and demand curve. You can control it, not be at the mercy of it. And what I mean by that is, if you focus on sales innovation, not content innovation. Now, content innovation is really important because there's 2 distinctions here, right? There's meeting the need and there's fulfilling the need. And so what a lot of marketers do out there, they'll get really good at marketing and sales and stuff, and they'll meet the need, right? But then after the customer buys the product, they feel short of fulfilling the need, right? So an example would be us selling you the book, and say, you know what, that's the book, goodbye, and then sticking you in, book a call with us, we sell you stuff. That's kind of meeting the need, right? Basically self-serving enterprise, right? But here what we're doing the 7-day fast start, we're doing, other stuff, and we're basically fulfilling the need. We're going out of our way to help you guys understand this so you guys can get results doing things that other people can't get, right? And so what ends up happening is like the content production people are at the mercy of the supply and demand curve, whereas being a sales-driven organization, you can dictate the supply and demand curve, right? And so typically what ends up happening is when you first start out doing this, you have what's called a marketing problem, right? You can't acquire customers, right? And then what ends up happening in the 7-day fast start, day 3, we're going to show you how to solve that problem. And then what you're going to walk away with is you're going to have a capacity problem. And when you have a capacity problem, that means you can't take on, you have less time, then you have more people coming on. And basically what you do is you raise prices, right? And now you go up, how you see all these gurus out there, they're like, oh, just raise your prices to like $50,000. You just got to get one, right? What they don't tell you is like, that's fucking hard to do, right? Because it's like, you can't just go arbitrarily raise your prices without demand. It's like, well, that doesn't make sense, right? So I have a local buddy here, right, in Charlotte, where I live, and he does design and stuff like that. And so he's like, and he just raises his prices all the time. But like, he's like, this is important and stuff. I'm like, dude, it's like nobody's buying your work. So it's like, you need to lower the prices, build up demand, build up quality, then raise the prices. Like natural supply and demand completely ignores that, right? So you got a lot of these like, coaches / life, gurus, whatever they are. I don't even know what they are, but like they're running around like headless chickens on various groups, yelling, hire my coaching and stuff like. Yes, I am. Francesca's. Are you in Charlotte? Yeah, I'm in Plaza Midwood. But yeah, so basically, they're running around like headless chickens, saying raise prices without a mechanism to raise prices. You got to have a mechanism that allows you to raise prices. And the only mechanism you have to raise prices is basically your ability to create demand for your products. And when the demand exceeds the stuff, you can raise your prices. But the only way to create demand is to have an offer that works, that allows you to acquire the customer, right? And so, with that in mind, the market rewards those who can acquire the most customers, right? And so to do that, you have to be aware that the fact that the only way to do that is to become a sales-driven organization, not a content-driven organization, etc. And so that's kind of the big secret. Well, I don't even know if it's a secret. I think it's just kind of like an obvious truth that most of these guys don't know. But now you guys know.
Well, it's not super obvious. And actually, so just to kind of add like one more dimension to that is, if you look at it from an even higher level, it's almost that the market rewards those who can acquire the attention and then convert that into a customer. So if you look at YouTube, for example, one thing that I've noticed is I'm luckily spending less and less time on there, but there are certain YouTubers, right, that I've watched for many, many years. And what you see is they find like the one type or the two types of videos that really just seem to work. Like the algorithm loves it and they just, everybody eats it up and Facebook promotes it and so on. And so they start doubling down on those videos. So there's a guy, I think his name is Eric Conover or something like that, right? Started off as just kind of a generic YouTuber, like one of these guys who just moves to New York to like go for his dream, right? Which he didn't really know what it was at the time. And then he started like teaming up with Ryan Serhant from $1 Million Listing. They started making, these awesome penthouse tour videos and stuff on YouTube. And the guy noticed that, holy crap, this really works on YouTube. So they start doing more and more and more of that. And the same goes for like Graham Stevens or Stefan, whatever his name is, personal finance stuff. And so what you start to see is no matter what game you're playing, so we're talking about this from the lens of our game that we're playing, which is we're in the client acquisition game, or like, we're running a business. And you could say that a YouTuber is a business too, but they're playing a different game. So they're going to organically try to acquire the attention and turn that into money by getting paid from YouTube. So no matter what game you're playing, you need to observe what the market is responding to. And so for us, for most businesses, that's simply going to be being allowed to go acquire attention by paying for it, and then using what we're going to cover here in the video to turn that into a paying customer and make your money back from the advertising.
Yeah, but you have to be careful with acquiring attention. You can't just go acquire attention, because attention has to have a purpose, right? So like,
acquire, like I said, converting them into a customer, like that's the key component of that attention.
Yeah, the attention you generate serves the offer you create, right? And so a lot of people out there will go get attention, right? So there's these types of people, like they're internal and external. External people, you ever guys know like those people when you were in high school or whatever, college, they just need attention all the time. Like they're kind of like always in front of the class, speaking up, they're dressing weird. They're always like super. They just need a lot of attention, right? And so like you'll have a lot of people out there doing this sort of business, and because that's the payoff, right? But without and so the thing is, the attention needs to serve the offer, not you, right? That's the big thing.
Right.
And so out there, what happens with the YouTube stuff, the attention serves the person creating the content, right? But the problem with that is there's no mechanism to convert that attention into money, right? And so like you can get attention out there very easy, right? So for example, like you can put like a you can like you can create some weird thing and run it on Facebook and you'll get a lot of attention. Doesn't mean it'll make you money. So you have to have the right kind of attention. So like I just want to give caution. You have to be careful with that. You shouldn't go out there kind of like, I don't think they should go out there and like say I just want to acquire attention, because like attention has to have a purpose. It has to be strategic, and the attention should be derived from the offer, right? And so one other thing that comes to mind with that is like typically people this is how it works, right? Like people will build an offer or funnel something, right? And then what they'll do is they'll say, okay, now I got to go sell it. Then they go find these Facebook ad guys or whatever, and then they'll try to run ads. And what ends up happening is there's this massive disconnect, because the ads they create have nothing to do with the offer. So they're getting the attention that has nothing to do with the offer. Then people on the landing the page don't convert. So there's this massive disconnect across the board. And when you have a massive disconnect across the board, then nothing happens. So you have to have like this perfect alignment of like the attention, the offer, the upsells, and the high ticket. Like
the back end.
It has to be like this smooth, straight line, straight path from the front to the back end. And if you get the attention wrong, or any of these components, what ends up happening is like you have the zigzag, right? And so it's like they get the attention, zigzag, 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 and nothing happens, right? And so what ends up happening is like your economics don't really work, and you can't go out there and buy customers or acquire clients. All right, so basically, the interesting thing about this is that like the cool thing is there's a way, like so the big problem, right, in the space is like, well, I'm gonna go do all this hard work, and I want to go see. I don't know if this is gonna work for me, right? That's the biggest problem I see people having, because they go out there and they, like that's the biggest thing. Like basically they're a category of people are called risk optimizers, right? And so risk optimizers, like I don't want to waste my time, I don't want to waste my money, I don't want to kind of go into this building it not knowing it's going to work. They need certainty, they need assurance it's going to work, right? So how do you do that, right? So what you do is you basically dry test an offer, right? And so the way to dry test an offer is like, let's say for example you have an idea, you want to go create, like I don't know, let's say you have a dog training offer, right, as an example, right? And you're like, I have this friend who's really good at dog training, and I want to go create a dog training offer. By the way, really good market. You guys should go into it. It's like fucking easy to make $1 million there. So I have this friend. I'm gonna go. He likes to training dogs. He can make dogs do. He can make dogs speak any language.
Backflips, whatever.
Yeah, backflips, whatever, right? And you're like, I want to go create an offer around this guy because of his superpowers, because he can train dogs. But I don't know if it's gonna work, right? I don't know if it's gonna work. So how do you do it? So what you do is you basically take the rapid launch stack from Automatic Clients, and you just build everything out. You build a front page out, you do the graphics, you do everything, and then what you do is you just have an opt-in. You don't have a checkout, because I don't think legally you can take people's credit card and payments if you don't have a product. So it's kind of a gray area. So I'm not a lawyer, so if you're going to try that, talk to a lawyer or whatever. But basically, you have an opt-in, right? And that's a safe way to do it. And you basically run ads to it and see if people opt in, right? And so the assumption is like, if you're running this thing and then people are reading the sales page and it says add to cart $5, $10 or whatever, and they opt in, then the probability they're going to buy, right? And you can look at the opt-in. So typically checkout page should convert about 50%. So for every person that opts in, one should buy. So if you have 10 opt-ins, that basically means you should have gotten 10 buyers, right? And so what you can do is before creating the product, before
50%. So 10 opt-ins, 5 buyers, right?
Yeah. So before creating a product, before spending time building the upsells, the members area, all that stuff that like basically takes a lot of work. If you want to know that it's going to work, you just basically do the offer, and then you have add to cart, and then you see how many opt-ins happen, and that's basically dry testing the market, right? And so an equivalent would be like, for example, like these car companies will do something like that. They'll create like a prototype, right? And they'll see how much engagement the press has, and they'll try to look at the market reaction, see if people are really hot about the car, right? And if people are really hot about the car, they'll go ahead and make it. So Acura as an example, like they had a prototype for the NSX, right? Like they kind of do a teaser, right? And then and stuff like that. And they're like, okay, this is great, and so we'll go build it. And they go build it. And so a lot of companies will do that. Like really big companies like Apple, they probably do this internally. But like some companies just do it. And this is how you do it. You basically just create an offer, create a page, using the rapid launch tag, and then you just say, okay, if it's going to work, it's going to work, and you can see the data. And then once the data comes back, then you can go and create, you can go create, how do you call it, the rest of the offer, rest of the funnel, and then you can basically come back to those same ads that you started, and now you have a working offer, right? Versus, what most people do is they're going to go ahead and versus what most people will do, go build the whole thing out, and then it might work, it might not work, and that's a huge waste of time. Now, if you guys have an idea, if you see, now there's a caution to that. If you see a whole bunch of people selling dog training offers, chances are your offer is going to work, right? You don't need to go dry test that, right? But this is like in markets where you're unsure. And we have guys doing this in really weird markets. I mean, we have a guy actually doing it in dog training, and he doesn't even his English, I think English is his sixth language or something. So his English like not that great. He's doing a dog training. We have a guy selling he paints stuff, and he sells his painting doing it, right?
He's crushing it.
Yeah, he's crushing it. The guy with the painting. We have a guy doing playing instruments and stuff like that. We have a guy just weird markets, and this works everywhere, right? And so the problem is everybody's out there, because of the Facebook algorithm, we just see all these make money, be a coach offers. But the thing is, it's everything else is well, there's a lot of opportunity in other markets that everybody should really explore because, man, I'll tell you, the cost is cheap. The dog training leads are cheap. The painting leads are cheap. Versus these leads that we operate in aren't cheap, and so you have to really go all out. So you can do a lot less and be a lot less, not as good as you should be, and still make a lot of money if you go into these oddball markets, right? And the way you find oddball markets is I think we covered it last year. You can go on Amazon, you can go on Udemy, you can look at all the different courses and stuff like that. So any thoughts on that, Robert, before we go to the next slide?
Nope, that's good.
All right, cool. All right, next big lesson of building your offer is the only way to survive is to be an apex predator, right? And so if you look at the planet, there's what's an apex predator? Well, humans are the number one apex. Well, actually, I think Corona might be the first apex predator right now, but humans are the biggest apex predators. And the reason is we eat everything, right? We eat everything, basically plants, everything, etc., right? And so what's interesting about that is the only way to be an apex predator in this game is to be able to pay the most acquire a customer, right? So if you look at the traits of a predator, right? Basically teeth, strength, endurance, etc., right? And humans have all that. Most of human hunting in history wasn't actually using guns or spears or arrows. It was actually running after animals until animals are exhausted, and then you basically eat it after it's exhausted because we're built for that, right? And so if you look at wolves, they do the same thing. They can chase forever, right? And I read somewhere that a pack of wolves can cover 1,000-mile territory in 3 days, right? So, we look at our offers as apex predators, right? And the reason only is and the only way to be an apex predator is to be able to acquire the most for a customer. Can you go ahead and pay to acquire the customer, right? And so the reason for that is if you have 100 people, right? They're all predators, meaning they're basically out there trying to go hunting for customers, get customers, etc. And the one that can pay the most, more than others, he's the apex, right? He's going to get all the customers because Facebook doesn't care where the money comes from. To them, a dollar's a dollar, right? They don't give a shit, right? And now one thing is, what ends up happening is, if an area has too many predators, right? So let's say an area has a bunch of deer, right? And then a bunch of wolves come in and they eat all those deer. What ends up happening is that the resources get dwindled down. So if an apex predator comes into a territory, he basically eats all the resources and other predators die out, right? And so that's really important. So if you can pay to acquire customers, you get those customers and basically, they do business with you. There's a finite amount of high ticket coaching clients, etc., that are in the market, right? And so people have this, there's this big fat lie out there that it's there's all this unlimited money and everything, and it's all you got to do, go get some, right? That's true to an extent, right? But every ecosystem has a limited amount of high ticket buyers, right? And what ends up happening is if somebody gives me $5,000 for our stuff or $10,000, they're not going to give it to you tomorrow because mathematically they don't have it, right? They just don't have it. You can't have a person. I mean, some people will have, we have one guy, he joined everybody's coaching program, right? So it's pretty, but there's cases like that, right? And so it's if somebody joins my coaching program, they're not going to join yours. If somebody joins yours, they're not going to join mine, right? And so there's a finite amount of people out there that can give you money for your high ticket stuff, your front end stuff, etc. And the beauty of these $5 offers that we run is you have all these uneducated marketers out there running offers, right? Like these quote unquote gurus, right? And they're running webinars and stuff. They're asking people to give them $1,000, $10,000, whatever for their webinars, etc., for their $100 master classes. And all they're doing is they're creating awareness, right? So they're making everyone aware of how this game works. But then not everyone wants to go pay that, right? Because it's a risk proposition. And we talked about this before, right? And I think in the first video. And what ends up happening is like when you come in with your $5 book, you basically just slide off that awareness. And a good example of that was like, for example, iPhone. Like Steve Jobs and Apple, they created this iPhone and they created awareness of smartphones. And then Android companies were like, thanks. And then they basically just like took all the customers. There's actually a lot more Android users than iPhone users, right? And so same thing with Tesla. Tesla created this awareness for an electric car. Everybody now is like, they want to make electric cars because they created a market need, right? So all these other people are creating a market need. But the problem with that is there's a limited amount of people that will actually give you money. And not that they will give you, that they can give you money, right? So the name of the game is to be able to go acquire them fast as you can, right? And basically be able to travel where others can't. And so, smart predators, like really like humans, right? The reason humans came out of Africa and ended up being in like, all over the world is because we can travel far. And like also wolves, you have wolves in North America, you have wolves in Europe, you have wolves in China, everywhere, right? And the reason being is because they're predators, they can travel far. And like your offer as an apex predator has to have massive AOVs to go travel far, right? It has to go travel far in the ecosystem of Facebook, YouTube, or Google. It has to be able to go acquire the customers far, right? And so with that in mind, what allows you to travel far is the highest average order values, right? Basically, if you can pay more, you can travel far. Think of it as a ticket distant lands to acquire customers and clients, right? And so, for example, if we can pay, say, $100 to acquire a $5 customer, that means the Facebook algorithm can show our ads to people who are into, I don't know, who are into comic collecting or some weird things that might buy it. I don't know how it's going to identify it, right? But it can go out there and do all these things without constraints. So in fact, what we do, like when we optimize our campaigns, we just remove all the targeting and we just do, target entire countries. And that's how it works. That's how effective it is. And you can do it too, right? So that's it. And basically, as I said before, the strongest predators are endurance predators. Basically, they have the endurance. And so the things that gives you endurance is to increase your cart value, right? So everybody out there, I'm sure most of you guys have been around this game a lot. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. But, there's this thing called AOV, right? AOV, it's average order value. And basically what that means is like if somebody buys your front end, they buy your upsells, your bump, whatever, that's the average order value. And that's where the game ends, right? But what nobody talks about is MLTV, right? Which is LTV, the lifetime value of a customer. So not many marketers focus on lifetime value of the customer, and I never heard anybody talk about MLTV, maximum lifetime value of a customer, right? So basically, what ends up happening is like if you get a customer today for $5, we've had people that gave us $5 and they end up giving us $40,000, right? And so if we didn't have that $50,000 package to sell, there's no way in hell they could give it to us because it doesn't exist, right? So for example, let's say like you want to go buy, I don't know, let's say you wanted to go buy an iPhone, right? And it's like $1,000, like the most expensive iPhone, I think is like to say $1,500, right? And so what ends up happening is like, let's say, you win the lottery and you go to Apple and you're like, you know what, I want to get that phone, but I want it to be gold plated. I want the gold. I want a gold case. And Apple's like, sorry, don't have it, right? And you're like, I'll give you $50,000 for it. And Apple's like, sorry, don't have it, right? But what if there was like what if there was like thousands of people that would give, $10,000 to Apple for a gold-plated phone, right? And that's the thing. There's people in there, we call them whales, that will buy very, very expensive things that increase your lifetime value, which increases your AOV, average order values, right? So MLTV is really important. And so like when we work with people, we coach them to have $100,000 worth of value in their funnel. And what happens with that is like if somebody comes from $5, they can buy, $5, $200, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, $3,000 a month. We have guys now we coached, they have continuity of clients paying them $3,000 a month, for stuff. And so it's like, you have this thing, and then when you add all that up, it comes out to a lot of money. And so the whole point is basically to have stuff that people will buy, because once they become an activated buyer, they're going to continue to buy your stuff. And like where most people fail is not having anything to sell them. Instead, they're like, go buy it over there. And so once you kind of condition somebody to be a buyer, if you don't have stuff to sell them, guess what? They're going to go buy it for somebody else, and then that person might have, a $50,000 program, whatever, to sell them. So MLTV is what allows you to go far, maximum lifetime value, which adds up a lot, right? And so basically, let's see. And so the thing is like with predators, with that in mind, like we look at these offers as like basically they're out there hunting, competing with other predators, right? And I don't know if that's the right word. It's kind of like an evil word, but not evil in a sense of like, malicious intent. It's more like about complexity, right? Okay. And so all predators are complex animals, right? Whose biology allows them to manage their complexity allows them to give them the advantage, right? And so what I mean by that is like, birds eat fish, humans eat birds, right? Okay. And so it's like if you look at complexity, it's like complexity always eats simplicity, like always in nature, right? And I was reading this thing on somewhere, I can't remember where, it was a Quora or something, but I read this post, it was fascinating, and it said how societies, they organize themselves into more complex societies because it was a need for war. And so like complex societies could defeat simple societies because of wars, right? And so for example, if you have like one society that could produce weapons, agriculture, food, etc., and you had the other one who was just focused on producing food, the ones that could produce all these things more effectively could win, right? And so if you look at the current world today, it's very true. Like, Apple acquires the new company. I think I read some the other day. I think like Apple acquires a new company every 1 or 2 weeks now, right? So they're basically eating other companies, America, for example, we ate Iran, what's that, the other countries, Iraq, Libya and stuff like that. It's like we defeated them, right? And so it's like complex societies defeat simple societies. And it's interesting because it was like, America versus Soviet Union, and those both were very complex societies, but we couldn't really defeat them. They kind of had to fall inside. They kind of fell apart inside, right? And so the more complex the organism, it will always defeat a simple organism, right? And so like as a marketer, there's this story told out there, simplicity, simple funnels, just get one client, do this one thing, right? And that's fine, right? But it's not fine when you're competing with people from, Africa, Indonesia, Austria, like all these countries with like, they're all really smart human beings. They're just because their country, doesn't have like, infrastructure and stuff doesn't mean their brain IQ isn't high. All they need is a laptop, right? All they need is a laptop to get on a laptop and read and learn and synthesize information. They're going to compete with you. Those are really fucking smart people, right? In fact, some of the smartest marketers now that I'm meeting aren't even in America anymore. They're like in these other small countries, and it's like fascinating to watch. I'm like, holy shit, this is great, right? And so the only way to do it, to win, is to basically, become complex, to manage complexity. And so your offers have to be complex, right? So if you look at the automaticlines.com offer, it's like a lesson in complexity. It's very complex, right? So you look at a lot of other book offers, they're very simple. They're like, here's the book, blah blah blah, it's $5, right? So they're using the price to sell it, right? We don't care about the price. The price is just a small filtering mechanism to basically just vet people in, right? What we're really selling is an idea. And so the reason the page is so complex and the funnel is so complex and everything we teach is so complex, one, because we need it, but two, it's also to sell you the idea, which creates the intent, which makes you a better customer, and also it makes you more compliant, and also gets you better results, right? And so, and so basically all predators have an evolutionary tool that allows them to hunt, which gives them leverage over the environment, right? So for example, wolves have teeth, right? Cheetahs have teeth, agility, and speed. Humans have brains, tools, spears, and leverage, right? So it basically all comes down to leverage, right? Yeah. And so, like I said, complex organisms eat simple organisms. Going through my notes here. So humans eat birds, birds eat fish eat worms, worms eat plankton, right? And so basically like, the top of the food chain, right? And so simple on the outside, complex on the inside. And so, like if you look at automatic clients, it looks kind of very like simple, but it's complex, right? It's like it looks like, okay, I can build that page. That's simple, right? Well, okay, well, look at all the psychology in the page. That's not so simple. Look at the upsells. That's not so, like, they look simple, but they're not really simple. They're very complex. We have like, I don't know if you guys know this, but like we have all the top gurus buying our offers trying to study it. And it's funny because like we record all our pages, like we use Hotjar, we record it, and we can see like who's on the page and what they're looking at, studying it. And they're completely looking at the wrong thing because they're trying to copy simplicity. They're not aware of where the complexity is, right? And so like even an iPhone, like if you look at an iPhone, like, it's a very simple execution tool, but there's like 147,000 people behind it, And so in nature, complex organisms always eat simple organisms, right? And so, what we do isn't simple, so complex societies get more complex. That's another thing, right? And so one thing here in our notes that we're going to add about complexity and the importance of managing complexity and all this is that complex societies only get more complex. There's no de-evolution of society, right? So like as a system, United States gets more complex, and you can see, this kind of like, you can see, this evident in like, Obamacare, the healthcare issues, the immigration issues, all these different things, are happening because of the complexity is increasing. Hold on, guys, I lost my point here. Bear with me. Okay, yeah. 1 second. Okay, yeah. And so, if you look at United States, it's very complex, right? If you look at China, it's complex. If you look at Somalia, not so complex, right? And so again, like war rewards communities to fight and survive, but basically allows them to beat other things. And so what it is, like marketing out there, is nothing more than war with other offers, if you really think about it. You're fighting out there to get that customer, right? And so having the offer out there in the marketplace allows you to do the AOVs, and the complexity behind that allows you to increase their AOVs. So before I go to the next slide, Robert, any thoughts? Do you want to add?
I think you covered it all, man.
All right, great. Next up is your offer is your tool that allows you to eat other offers in the market. That's it, right? That's it, nothing more, nothing less. But it has to be strategic, right? It has to be done well, okay? And so it has to work with the ecosystem. And what's interesting is that every ecosystem can support a certain amount of has a certain amount of resources, and then basically once those resources are depleted, the ecosystem is no longer functional, right? And what I mean by that is like, for example, like if you go out hunting and you hunt all the deer, there's no more deer, you're not going to eat anymore, you'll die out. So it's a self-calibrating mechanism in nature, right? And what's happening in our space is that there's a limited amount of time, a limited amount of people who will spend $5,000 to $10,000, and so you better go get them quick. Otherwise, once they spent it, they're not going to spend it with you, right? And so you have to have an offer that's strategically built, and also that kind of checks off all the, what would I say, like all the measures of a good offer, right? Strategically smart. So for example, like you could go out there and sell a webinar at $1,000, that's fine, right? But you'll have to spend $5,000 on traffic and testing, and you don't know if it's going to work, right? And then attention, because of the first thing we talked about, where attention, is gone, because everybody is out there now being able to create awesome content on YouTube and everywhere else. It's like you only have so much time. Most people aren't going to go watch your 2-hour webinar, and everybody knows that it's a pitch, right? Whereas it's like, hey, this is a book, this is valuable, here's a page that explains everything, it's $5, let's go, right? And people are like, okay, cool, that's an honest transaction, And so your offer is a tool that allows you to eat other offers in your market. It's a starting point of your acquisition. And basically the big idea now going into this new section is that what you get on the front is what you get in the back, right? And so like if you're out there, like selling, for example, like, I know a guy right now is doing really well, and he has this whole thing like become a millionaire, right? Become a millionaire, that's it, right? And so he's getting people on the front end who they just want to become a millionaire. They don't give a shit about like learning, growing, or actually doing the work to become a millionaire. They're just like, I want to be a millionaire, right? That's it. And then on the back, that's what he's getting. So his phone team on the back is like, okay, we're going to teach you to be a millionaire, right? Well, that's really hard, right? And so like they have to keep their promise, and that's not sustainable, right? And so you really have to be aware of who you're attracting on the front. And like, we did, or the first offer we did was called 2-Hour Agency. And the ironic part of that is actually true. So Robert, he ran an agency for like 7-8 years, automated it, because Robert's superpower is basically automation, and making things like tick without him having to put much time into it. And so he worked like, no time, maybe like 5-10 minutes a week, whatever, just basically sorting bills in the agency, and then, created this thing called 2-Hour Agency. And the idea was like, you can run an hour agency for 2 hours a week, right? And it was great. A lot of people bought it, but wrong people bought it, right? Like wrong people attracted, because all those people wanted to do was basically like minimize their time input and stuff like that, and basically just kind of coast, right? And so who you get on the front is who you get in the back. So you have to be really cognizant of what your primary anchors of conversions are, right? So let's talk about that. So you always have like a primary anchor of conversion on your sales page, right? So some guys, might have like I don't know, let's say they might do videos with like Lamborghinis or whatever, right? So basically that's it. So they're basically selling on material possessions. You have some guys that basically have a ton of income screenshots, right? And basically, you're getting people who want that. So an example of that would be like maybe a month or two ago, we started like posting like, screenshots of our revenue or money or whatever in the group. And a lot of people started DMing us wanting to like work with us, right? And then it's like, fine. And then they got into the program, and then it was like they weren't really great people to work with, because we attracted the people who were motivated by those screenshots. But then when it came down to doing the work, it was like, shit, I don't want to do that work. I just want the screenshots, right? So you have to be really careful out there what you put out there, because that's what you attract, And then, for example, if you're out there like in the fitness space and you're selling people how to get ripped, you get people who want that. If you're there painting, selling paintings, and you're showing off how much money you have, whatever, because of those paintings, you get painters who want to basically have that. And basically what you do is, or you can sell on ideas, and you get people who want ideas. And so like for us, like the reason we're doing the 7-day fast start is because we ultimately sell based on ideas and breakthroughs and transformations, right? And so what ends up happening is like you go through this process and you get a lot of engagement, you get a lot of takeaways, and then from that we can build upon like the foundation we created for you to help you get massive success, right? So what you put out there in your offer, what you get on the front is what you get on the back, right? And so next up,
one quick note on that. So
yeah,
one of the things that Alan and I debate a lot is like the importance of a name. So Alan comes from the camp of like a name of a product or an offer is very important, and I come from the other part where I'm like, if the economics are aligned, it doesn't really matter and so on. But as we're talking about this, so to me, what I want to adjust my position on that a bit. Knowing what I know now with the 2-hour agency and so on, it's like what Alan's saying is, whatever you put out there, the product, and also I realize the name, that's kind of the magnet that you're putting out there. And that's going to attract a certain type of person based on that. So if you name your product 2-hour agency, you're going to attract people who are looking to work 2 hours a week, right? And one thing that I thought was really cleverly done by Frank Kern, I'm sure a lot of you guys are aware of him. He's, a marketer who's been around for a long time. But he had this issue where he was attracting the wrong people. So I remember him talking about how he kind of renamed his podcast, I think it was, to Your Next Million, because he wanted to attract people who already had made $1 million. He didn't want people who had made less than $1 million. So the name of the podcast became Your Next Million, and then by default, that's his magnet, and so he's attracting those kinds of people. So with automatic clients, there's still that sexiness to it, but we're attracting people who are willing to do the work, to set up the machine and get clients. But this is incredibly important. And so when we talk about the importance of a name, and actually later on in this video, we're going to show you we've built this naming generator that's going to help you guys name your offers. So I want to change my position there. And so in that regard, I think the name is very important because it's going to dictate who you are actually attracting. And like Alan says, if like what you get in the front is what you get in the back. So if you're using something to attract them in the front, then that's what they'll be expecting, and that's that's going to dictate the kind of person that shows up when you try to sell them on the back. So if on the front you're saying one thing and then on the back you're saying another thing, like, hey, it's very easy to make money, you can work 2 hours a week, but then on the back you say this is a lot of work, you can make $1 million, but they're like, well, that's not what I came for, So very important in that respect.
Huge.
Next slide.
Yeah, that's a big idea. Yeah, I like that for sure. Yeah, you really want to be careful who you attract right into your business, because you have to spend time with them, and if your values like aren't really aligned with them, then it's gonna be really suck. Like they'll pay you, but you won't be happy with it. It'll be like, man, I really don't like working with these people, right? So
and it's a lag there, because you can put something out that's going to, like you could put a sugar cube on your floor and the ants are going to come flocking, right? But then you might realize a month later that this is not what I wanted. So you can be fooled by those initial results, but you have to be very careful, like Alan says, because if you think about it, you might realize from day one that that's not actually what you want. So you do have to think about this. So even today, I'm adding to our Facebook group. I'm sure you guys have seen people do this before, where they ask for an email address as you join a Facebook group. And so I was like, hey, Alan, we should probably put some kind of incentive, right, to get people to give their email. And immediately, as I'm thinking about the incentive, I have to think about what the incentive is, because I don't want to put something here that gets you to give me your email, but you're not the person that I want. So that has to be considered. So that goes whether you're doing a free offer or an automatic clients type of book offer, like that really needs to be considered what you're trying to sell them on the back end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a huge idea, actually. Yeah, incentives have to be aligned for sure. Yeah. Keep that in mind, guys. All right, so next up, people shouldn't only want to buy your offer, they should need it. This is a big, big difference, right? So you heard about selling to wants and needs, right? And so basically needs always will overcome wants. If you have to eat, you're gonna eat first before go buying that expensive toy that you wanted to buy, right? And so the way you should create your offer, your friend offer, is that it should be a need, right? People should need it, not just want it, right? And so like you shouldn't need to convince people that they should want it. That's the litmus test, right? So if somebody's like want it, you shouldn't have to sit there and use like psychology or mental backflips, whatever, to get them to want it. You should be able to just articulate what it is, and they should be like, oh, that's really cool, I kind of want to use that, right? And so basically wants are usually based on, let me see here. Okay, so wants are usually based on them looking at everyone else and seeing that that's how it should be, so I want it too, right? So basically in the marketplace, the wants are done created and want and defined based on everybody else looking at kind of like everybody else, and it's like, okay, they're doing it, so I want to do it too, right? This is how like fashion fads and diet fads and shit are born, right? So in this space, like you see a lot of people out there. For example, you see ClickFunnels do free books, right? And everybody's like, I gotta do a free book, right? So all these guys are rush out there and they do these free books, and they don't realize, hey, you got to spend like $10,000 on printing, storage, and then you ship them, and then most people don't do anything, and it's like kind of really expensive to do that, right? Because ClickFunnels did it. Well, what they don't realize is that ClickFunnels did it because they they have this massive software company behind it, so it works for them, but it doesn't work for most people, right? And so that's kind of a want, and so I want that too, right? But needs are based on knowing what the actual problem is and how to solve it, right? So like humans, like basically business is nothing else than problem solving. You have a problem, let's solve your problem, right? Here it is, right? So that's it. If you look at society, it's like nothing than exchange of value based on problem solving. Like I go to McDonald's, I'm hungry, solve my problem. Okay, fine. Here's a burger, here's fries, eat, whatever, right? Everywhere it's like that, but you have to know what the problem is and you have to solve it, right? And so basically most people, they have a need, but they also they have a want over that need, right? So your job is to help them bridge that want and need and show them the path, right? And so for example, right now you guys want to create a business, get high ticket clients, do yada yada yada, whatever your goal is. This is exactly what we're doing with this video here and other videos. We're basically bridging that gap between needing to how do you call it? You guys have a want, and now we're sharing you what you have, and then we're going to show you the real need, right? So the philosophy of that ultimately comes down to, it's like, sell people what they want, give them what they need, right? So like you can't just ignore the wants completely, and the worst is shouldn't only want to buy, they should also need it. So that means only, but they should also want to buy it. So basically you want to tap into the wants of the market, and then you want to deliver on the needs. But ultimately, if you're going to get them to do business with you long term, buy your high ticket stuff and everything, they should have a need, to be aware of the need. And the only way to do it is to build an awareness of of the need, all right? Otherwise they won't know what the need really is, and they're kind of surface level, kind of like coasting, whatever, but they really don't know what the real problem is, right? And so for example, I'm sure many of you here will be like, okay, I just need an offer, I need this, but it's like, wait a minute, like I need an offer that has high AOVs, otherwise I can't go buy customers, right, on Facebook or Google, whatever, right? And so that's kind of the big lesson here. Like, we're helping you become aware of the need. And once you help somebody become aware of the need, that's when, you make the most amount of money, because if you're the one to make them aware of the need, logically, it would conclude that you're the only one that can actually help them, solve that need, Otherwise, like, why would you make them aware of it, So that basically sub-communicates to people that, you've been there before them. And therefore the path, right? So,
and I will add too, there's like, looking at the wants and the needs, like part of it is there's wiggle room, right? There's a want that you could make it seem like a need, and then there's actual needs, and the more you're able to actually sell something that's an actual need. Like I have a friend who, their family business, they sell water in a big country here in Europe. They are so rich, his mom got kidnapped. Like, it's crazy how much money they have because they're selling water. And I'm talking about bottled water in the store, and I believe also, water that goes into your house. So I'm not saying that you should go out there and try to sell water, but the truth is that the more of a need you're actually selling, and I'm not talking about the negotiable side of it, the easier the sale is going to be. It's like when your tooth hurts, you don't need to wait for an ad to show up on Facebook for a great offer, right? You just run to the dentist as soon as you can. So something to consider. If you're starting with a blank sheet and it's, you can decide which direction you want to go into, something to consider. But of course, the more of a need it is, typically, the more established that industry is going to be as well. And so it might be hard to break into.
But that's actually
Next
good. Yeah, go ahead.
What's up?
And you run this one. I think this is your wheelhouse.
Yeah,
here.
sure. Yeah. So for those of you that have the book in front of you, whether it's physical copy or the PDF, on page 273, you can see a small graphic of this. And you can also take notes if you want. But I think this is really important as well, because another thing that's sort of in line with the whole idea of, what you attract in front is what you get on the back, is why are people buying what you're selling? What problem are you really solving? And there's a couple of different categories. And once you figure that out, it's going to be easier for you to figure out what you'll be selling them later down the road. So one of the probably most common questions that we get is like, hey, Alan, or hey, Robert, what should my upsell 1 be? What should my upsell 2 be? Or rather, here is my upsell 1, here's my upsell 2. And then we realize that the thing that they're actually selling the category that they're appealing to on their book or on their front end offer, whether it's course or book or whatever, is different from the upsell that they're trying to sell. And that's typically not going to be a smart idea. So again, if you want to write this down, you can write down the list, but they're also on page 273 or whatever I said. But you can sell an outcome, right? That's what we're selling in automatic clients. We're helping you get clients for your business. You can sell novelty. We also talked about this in the last video, I believe, about timing. So an example of novelty is like Bitcoin or chatbots a couple of years ago. It's like something comes out and it's like has this promise of something new, or sorry, so it is new, but it has a promise of something. So Bitcoin, everybody's jumping on it, or crypto, whatever. So you're selling to the novelty. That's the category. You can sell certainty, right? That's like working with us to launch your offer. You can, in many ways, you can sell FOMO, fear of missing out. That's where you see people doing Clubhouse invites only. And what's really interesting, actually, is it just me, or did that just completely die out in the last couple of weeks? Like a couple of weeks before, it was just people almost like a status thing, like, hey, I got Clubhouse invites, who wants some? And then now it's completely gone. So the FOMO has worn off, I believe. You could sell status. So this is, the gated community in Hollywood Hills or whatever. You can sell speed and automation. So there's ClickFunnels, copy funnels, software, that kind of stuff. And then you can also sell like this, celebrity, or getting close to the wizard, so to speak. So what's interesting is, and we actually dealt with this with one of our clients yesterday, who's in our accelerator. He came to us and he was like, here's my OTO2 idea. And we kind of started working on it. And then I was like, well, let's take a step back here, because I realized that he was selling an outcome on the front, and then he was trying to sell status on the back. So there was a mismatch there. So we kind of caught that, and then we had to redo his second upsell. Because typically, and I believe this is actually on the next slide, we're going to talk about upsells, but you want those typically to be aligned and kind of do like a bigger, faster, stronger type of a thing. And I'm sure there are scenarios where it does work to do a bit of a mix or match, but ideally, you're trying to stay on the same track there. You're not trying to say, hey, come in for the outcome, and then I'm going to sell you a status thing, or I'm going to sell you a FOMO thing. They're usually aligned. So that's really important to consider. And with upsells, Alan, we typically people think in the direction of problem solution, and we have this kind of flip side solution problem model that when it comes to the sort of mindset around how do you think about an upsell, like what should an upsell be, and stuff like that. So how do you think around the solution problem model?
Yeah, well, first off, you can't run an offer out there without upsells. That's a given. So I used to do a lot of consulting in 2018. A lot of these very famous gurus came to me to help them with their webinars. And the first thing I would said was like, stick a $3,000 upsell, and they did, and they made their money go up a lot, right? So you have to have upsells, right? Why? Because it's like not having it is stupid, because you're just leaving a whole lot of fucking money on the table, right? And so the thing with upsells is that everybody out there has this thing where it's like a problem solution model, where it's like, here's a problem and then give me money for the solution, right? We kind of reverse that model, and we call it a solution problem, right? And so solution problem was basically like everything you solve in the world creates a new problem, right? So for example, I need, let's say I need to eat, right? So, okay, I go make dinner, right? Okay, solution solved. New problem, I gotta wash dishes, right? Okay. And then it's like, fine, the solution is the dishwasher. Okay, fine, new problem, I gotta get pods, right? So this thing is like this cause and effect that takes place everywhere, right? And so what most people do with upsell, they kind of randomly just kind of, even if they have them, they stick them in there, and it's like, there's no strategic reason or anything there, right? So for example, in automatic clients, the solution is like, we gave in a book, you get everything, right? Like, here's the damn book, here's everything, right? All the bonuses, you don't need it, you can do everything yourself, right? Which automatically created a new problem. The problem was like, well, you can go either do it yourself, or you can buy all our templates and everything we use internally. Okay, so that's a problem. So we did that. So we created a rapid launch stack. People love it, right? And then the basic idea of this bigger, faster, stronger, done for you, right? And so, or do it for you is the best, but done for you is really hard because of the time factor. You only have so much time, so you really can't do it like that as much as you want, right? So basically, with the rapid launch stack, we have that, and the philosophy behind upsells is bigger, faster, stronger, done for you, like upgrades, right? And so the hierarchy of needs on upsells is like, faster, basically means like launch in 2 to 4 weeks instead of 2 to 4 months. Bigger, it's like, do, for example, get more clients, or it can be a bigger version. So like if you're selling supplements, it can be like, get a bigger thing, right? Or something like that.
Supersize me,
Yeah,
bro.
yeah, exactly. And stronger is like double strength ibuprofen, like so bigger, faster, stronger than for you. And so with a rapid launch stack, the anchor is faster, right? Is faster, right? And so that's the anchor. So one of these anchors is always bigger, faster, stronger, done for you. And so kind of you'll have that anchor. But basically, like if you look at your problem, if you look at your front end product and your book, like whatever problem you solve, you just have to think about, well, what new problem arises out of that solution, and that's your upsell, and you just have to communicate that. And then like you guys can use the templates we have in whatchamacallit, in the rapid launch stack, because we give you the upsells there anyway, right? So next up, with that is like you have to have, because of upsells, you have to have 10x factor of scaling, right? So like without upsells, you can't hit 10x, right? And so what I mean by 10x is like if you sell your product for $5, you should be able to get $50 on the front end if you want to scale, right? So remember from the beginning of the call, we said if you want to be a predator that goes really far, right, to go get customers, like go to distant lands to get customers. By the way, it's funny because Coca-Cola did this, like they went to distant lands. So if you look at like all these like effective companies like iPhone, they went to distant lands, Nike went to distant lands, Coca-Cola went to distant lands, right? And so what that means is like you have to have the upsells and you have to have 10x, right? So you have to have a value vehicle. Like basically you have an offer, right? You have an offer, which is your front end. And then that if you sell it for $5, you should be able to get 10x. That's kind of the magic number. Now, if you're selling it for $1 and then you're going to go get $10, that's not going to work. This is kind of like a rule of thumb, right? It's a rule of thumb. So if it's like $7, then it's like, 50 to 70. It's a range. If it's $10, still 50 to $60 is fine, etc. But basically for us, it's like, if it's a $5 product, you should be able to get $50, day zero value. And what that allows you is basically to go buy customers at scale, right? And so like I said before, like if you have a webinar, you're out there running a webinar, it's $1,000 webinar, you have to put up $5,000 to see if it works, right? And it's like if it doesn't, you're out of $5,000. If it does, great, and then like let's guess again. And ultimately it's like you only so many guesses till you're like, I don't want to spend any more money on this, right? Whereas with this thing, it's like we literally spend like $50 and we're like, oh cool, results, right? We get results, etc. And it's fine. And then like right now it's like we spend money and we get the money back the same day. So we're just acquiring customers for free all day long, right? Which is really cool. And then we're building the process to ascend them in the back end. And this right here, the 7-day fast start, is part of that process, which you guys should do too, right? And so next up, what ends up happening is like there's this concept of a sales process, right? And so being in control versus not being in control of the sales process. So we have a guy that came into our accelerator. He has this thing where he sells like SEO to franchises, like like KFC and stuff like that. And he charges them $50,000 a month. He does these $50,000 a month deals, $200,000 a month deals, right? To all these like franchises and stuff. And so when I was talking to him, it was like I asked them, I'm like, how do people buy your stuff? Like, what's the timeline, right? And so they're like, well, this guy will buy, in 3 weeks. This guy might buy in 5 months. This guy might in 7 months, whatever, right? So, and I identified his core problem in his business, which was basically he is not in control of the sales process at all, right? So his customers are in control of the sales process, right? They decide when they're going to do business. He doesn't decide, and because if these customers decide they're going to do business, he's at the mercy of their, boredom, so to say, right? So they're like, I'm gonna go buy this PlayStation 5 instead of buying his stuff or something like that. That's a weird example because he sells really expensive shit, so I don't think that'd be a factor, but you see what I'm saying, right? And so what ends up happening is like, your sales are at the mercy of the customer because they can kind of skim through it. And so what you have to do is you have to force the sales consumption, right? And basically that increases higher OTO. So like right now our upsells are basically like when you come in, you have to watch the video. That's part of the sales process. You have to watch the upsell. And basically they watch the upsell and they can say yes, no, and after that they can decide. But basically getting the customer to consume the sales process is really important, right? And so they consume the sales process, and then of course you have to offer value and everything, and increases the conversions, right? So like, right now as I'm talking to you, we had our support just, post like somebody posted on, on one of our ads, and they were basically saying like, I got the book, I really like it, but I really hate watching that video, right? And what's interesting is that person hates watching the video. He wouldn't buy anyway because what's happening is he's aware of the sales process. So the more the market is aware of the sales process, the more there's sales resistance, and it becomes increasingly harder to sell, right? And so you have to have forced sales consumption, right? And that's one of the reasons webinars used to work really well, because it was basically forcing the consumption of everything, right? And now people are more aware, and so that doesn't really work as much, right? And the next up factor is attention and isolation, or high ticket sales in the back end, right? So it's like if you look at all the high ticket sales, you know, you have to do a strategy session or a phone with somebody because you have to have attention and isolation. You get to get them to focus, right? So like 10 years ago, I used to write these VSLs. You know, they sold like $500 front ends, and they basically had like $1,000 upsells, which I really want to try doing again because I think it can work. And you know, that did really well, and it was because I forced the attention and isolation. Like there weren't a bunch of people running around doing it, and we did really well with that, right? And so that's kind of how you get 10x. You have to have upsells, you have to have you know, all that stuff, and you have to have force the sales and consumption. And if the market is aware of the sales process, there's going to be massive sales resistance. So you have to work against that. That's really important. And then on the high ticket, you have to have attention and isolation. You know, you can't like speak one to many. You have to speak one to one, right? So like a lot of the stuff I'm talking about here is like broad strokes, kind of like a, you know, overview of how the stuff works. But all the details are in the book, and that's why I'm not going into the details right now as much. This is just kind of to help you get a little bit of a few nuggets that are not in the book that we kind of talk about in the accelerator, right? So next up is how to name your offer, right? And so like this is really important, like to me, right? Because like Robert doesn't think so, but it's like names matter a lot, right? And I'll give you an example, right? So when we were thinking about like how to name this book, right? We had two choices. We had automatic clients and we had that ascend, right? And we asked a whole bunch of people like what that was, right? And like automatic clients was like instantly understood. Whereas for the book Ascend, the name Ascend, we had to explain it, right? So if your offer name, you have to explain what it is, it's not good, right? So I see these guys out there right now running on on Facebook. It's like, you know, M7533, you know, underscore red code method, right? Like this weird fucking like you know, cryptographic names, you know. And what they're thinking they're doing, because this is mysterious, this is intriguing, this sounds like a military project that, you know, this is gonna sell because it's like they don't know what it is, like. And so that shit doesn't work. That shit used to work, you know, but it kind of we're over that era, right? So like when you name your offer, you really have to kind of put the end outcome into the offer, and an offer will dictate who you attract, right? So like automatic clients is like a fine balance between like people that are you know, you know, that want to kind of automate the client acquisition process, but at the same time they want like a real method that works, and that's why we named it that, right? Automatic clients, and plus it sounds fucking cool, right? And so the reason for names is people categorize things based on names, and they're organized on thoughts around names, right? So for example, there's this episode in Family Guy, right, where Peter, you know, Peter Griffin, like he realizes that his real name was Justin, right? And if you go to YouTube, you type in Family Guy, Peter Griffin, Justin, you'll see it, and like all of a sudden, like his name is Justin, and he becomes this like cool guy who's into surfing. He has a skateboard, he has a Jeep with like the surfboard. You've seen that, Robert, right?
I've seen a lot of Family Guy episodes, but I don't remember that one.
Yeah, look it up. Look up Family Guy Justin, right? And like he becomes Justin, right? And like he has like parties at the house, right? And so it's interesting because if you look at people, they're very true to their name. Like Alan, you know, my name is Alan, and I'm a semi-introvert, right? A lot of Alans are introverted, right? Like Roberts are kind of like, you know, well, it depends. It's like you're Robert, Bob, or Bobby, right? So it's kind of like how old you are, right? So it depends what you go by. But like they go by, you know, like there's these things, right? And like people are really kind of indicative of who their names are, right? So for example, like you know, we can, I don't know, who would be like what's a serious name, right? Like you guys give me a chat, like a serious.
George serious?
Nah, George is not. George is kind of like yeah, I don't not. There's guys that have like serious names. I can't like just like Charles. Charles is a serious. Charles is like, there we go. Charles is a serious type of guy, right? And you know, there's a whole
Karen means business. She needs to talk to the manager.
Yeah, Karen means business, right? So there's a lot that goes into a name. Like name should be considered, because what name, like, you know, what names do is it gives like a life to something, right? You name something. It's like, so it's like even people will name their cars, right? Like I name my cars, right? Like, you know, so like you name your car, and it's like, you know, when you name your kids, and like humans categorize things with names. Everything has a name, you know, like TV, air conditioner, laptop, right, etc. And so like if you imagine, like if humans had to have this like categorization of names, or like military projects, like, you know, 75 red method, you know, like, can you open that, you know, E73 door, you know, shit like that. Like it doesn't work, right? So you have to really, you know, have a name in there, and so you can paint a picture before they even read your see your stuff, right? And so that's why like all our best ads are just the automatic clients book, right? That's it, like automatic clients book, like, and just the cover of the book, and people go automatic clients, that's a book, that's nice, right? Versus like if we had like a fucking name that was like something like G75 code 3 get clients, right? People are like, what the fuck is this, right? They have to go and like kind of like spend all this energy to figure out what it is. I don't have the energy. I don't want to spend the energy trying to figure out what you're trying to tell me, right? And then I'll see this like gurus with these like weird I call them military code names, right? Like they'll be there and they'll see a video and like he's holding the book with this weird code on the book, and I'm like, it looks like HTML code, it looks like a piece of JavaScript or something, and I'm like, fuck, it's like I gotta go watch his video to learn what the hell he's trying to tell me. And I know he's trying to sell me shit. Otherwise he would be advertising, right? And so I have sales resistance. I'm like, fuck it. I don't want to interact with this guy. Next, you know what I mean? And what that does is devalues positioning a lot. Positioning is really important, right? And so when I see guys doing that, when they have an offer named wrong, like they have to try extra hard to explain what it is, which fucks up their positioning, right? And so if they have to go explain what it is, then it's like I see them exerting more energy than I am. And so like typically in positioning, like if you have like marketing and guru / positioning, this is getting really advanced now. It's like if the end user expends more energy than the guru, you have good positioning. If the guru has to expend more energy than the end user and their interaction, so the end user knows what it is, then the positioning is affected, right? And so like that's why like you shouldn't have to go sit there and explain everything in detail, what you do, what it is, because you're expending more energy. So when you do that, it totally screws up the positioning of the first initial interaction. And once you have that initial interaction, affected, then it's like getting it back is really hard, right? And so it's like you're swimming upstream. It gets really difficult to do. And so what's cool is like we actually came up with something really neat for you, which Robert's going to show you in a second. And so a lot of people, like, so for us in the Automatic Clients Accelerator, I literally came up with everybody's name. I think like 90% of names I came up with in there, right? Which is really easy for me. But, for a lot of people, it's really hard. And so we did you one better, and we created a generator for you, which we'll give you for free. So Robert, can you show up the generator and walk them through how that works?
Yeah, so just a quick my side of this. So the one thing is I agree with Alan in the sense of if you get the name right, it's going to help you. And what I think where I stand is if you get the name wrong, you can still succeed. And my example for that is a guy from, I'm from Sweden. There's a guy, a skier from Sweden. His name's John Olson. He has a YouTube channel. And he's very much like a classy guy. And he had this bag company called Douchebags. And it was like a complete mismatch between him and his YouTube channel and the vibe and his brand. It was like a complete mismatch. And still, they were very successful. But what's really interesting is they've recently renamed their company because they were probably fighting this battle, right? So I guess where I stand on this is you can still succeed if you fuck up the name. We don't want to, intimidate you in that sense that like if you get the name wrong, then your whole offer is completely doomed from the beginning. You can still succeed. But like Alan's pointing out, you're not going to be swimming upstream in a sense, if you're actually getting a name that's actually going to help you. And just wanted to bring one thing up here that's relevant. So Brian Conway asked a little bit earlier. He said, what about sales without selling? And I know that he wrote this when we were talking about this idea of making sure that you don't attract the wrong type of audience. So I think that's not a bad name in the sense of it has an outcome, kind of. And it's also, if the name was like, get 6,000 clients in 24 hours, then you would be attracting the wrong audience. But sales without selling is like it has an outcome, and it's not like a sleazy kind of a thing that's going to attract the wrong type of a person. So just some thoughts on that. Let me pull up the generator, and we're actually going to give you guys that.
What interesting thing about that whole hook about sell without selling? I've seen that hook kind of like being reborn. Like literally, it was kind of like reincarnated. Like it gets reincarnated every year in this industry. Like I shit you not, right? Like in one form or another. And the problem with that is like you're gonna get people who don't like selling, right? And then it's like getting them the result is really hard because the truth is you got to be able to sell. You got to be like unapologetic about asking people for money, right? And so like if you get a sell without selling, it's gonna be like, well, if you can get people a result, fucking do it all day long. But if you're trying to just use that as a hook, where it's like you get them in, but then they really got to sell, that's going to be a disaster. Because you look at a whole bunch of people in who don't want to sell, but they want to make money, but then they got to really sell. And that's like, oh man, that's like really hard,
Right.
Yeah.
So here's how we use this generator. First of all, we'll give you the link. Then you got to go to File, make a copy so that you can actually edit it on your own computer. So I'm going to do that. And then the way that we've done it is you need one word here in A2 that you put in. Like, let's do an example. Alan, what is like a word like ads or advertising or something,
I don't know.
some type of offer?
Let's let the audience decide. What do you guys want? Who wants to name an offer right now? How about Brian?
Yeah. So
Put sales. What is
give
it,
us like
Brian?
a core word
Do the
for
sales.
us
Do
to
the
work
sales.
with.
Do the sales.
Sales. All
Yeah.
right, hold on. So, sales. That's a good idea. So I put in sales here, and you're going to see all of these change. And then typically 3 words is what you're looking for. I mean, not always, automatic clients is an example, but oftentimes they end up being 3 words. And I know that Alan also is a big fan of alliteration, with all the words are starting with the same letter. But due to the nature of how this Sheets works, and for simplicity, sales secrets, probably super taken, right? But what you would do is, this is, so you put in the core word, sales, ads, whatever the thing is that you do, and it's going to spit out a list of all these sort of power words, and that's going to get your brain going. So sales blueprint, sales secrets, sales plan, sales boost. So let's take sales boost, for example, or sales secrets is probably preferred. Or if you see any other ones, Alan, that you like, sales skills.
Yeah, sales skills would be good. Like for example, Justin, I can't remember his last name.
Ad skills.
Yeah, he has ad skills. So
Justin
sales skills would be a sick offer name for people with sales skills. Yeah.
Yeah. So then, so that's the suffix. We figured out the latter part, or the second word. So then you go to the prefix tab, and then you put in those 2 words. So you put in, what did we say? Sales skills, and that's going to add a bunch of prefixes. So then, ultimate sales skills, advanced, crucial, secretive sales skills, superior sales skills, and it's going to pump out just a ton of different offer names. And then we put a link. Like, you literally just click the link and you'll go straight to a Namecheap to see if the domain is available.
That easy, guys. You get a sick name that easy. But yeah, look at it. Sales 7. Yeah,
I love that.
I would actually buy it.
That's fucking good.
So we have a funny thing is, right, like in the accelerator, like we were I would sit there and like publicly like this in front of everybody, come up with the people's offer names, and this one guy in Norway would like just constantly like buy everybody's damn domain, and so like the person will go trying to buy it, and it's like taken, right? So anyway, recap, guys. So this went over. We tried to do an hour, but it's really fucking hard to do an hour.
We did great today. We did great.
Yeah, it's not 2 hours. All right. So recap. Let's go recap. So let's see.
Yeah, we'll just do it quickly.
Yeah. So recap. You're in a customer and client acquisition business first and foremost. Nothing else. If you can't get the customer, content is useless. Operations is useless. Support. You have nothing, right? You have nothing, right? Because if you're not doing it, you have a hobby. So unless somebody's giving you money for what you're doing, you have a hobby, you don't have a business. And that's the truth, right? And a lot of people out there in this marketplace, I have a business, I have this. It's like, no, you have a whole bunch of fucking debt. You don't have any customers. And that's coming from a lot of people that I interacted with, right? That's the cold, hard truth. So you got to be able to go out there and get a whole bunch of money. And the way you do that is you create an offer, right? The market rewards those who acquire the most customers, not who create the best content, sadly. But you should also create the best content in the world to really help those customers. Because remember, there's 2 parts. You're meeting a need with your marketing, and you're fulfilling the need with your content, right? And so a lot of marketers out there, a lot of people out there, that the reason we have a huge failure in this industry of success, like I think we have like a 99% failure, right? And like, look, a lot of people don't do shit. They'll buy books, they'll buy products. In the accelerator, we have a whole bunch of people that sign up. They don't do shit, right? It's like you can't change nature, right? But you should be able to fulfill on that, and people that do stuff that they do get results, right? So it's not about just meeting needs, it's about fulfilling needs as well. The only way to survive is to treat your offer as an apex predator, so you can get the highest AOVs and go very far to get you customers, and get you customers away from people that would typically get them, because there's a limited amount of $5,000 to $10,000 high ticket buyers in the marketplace, despite what everybody else would have you believe. Complex organisms eat simple organisms, right? So worms eat plankton, fish eat worms, birds eat fish, humans eat birds, right? That's kind of the food chain, right? And so the more the complex your offer is, the more marketing you can put in, the better you'll do. Okay, got that. Your offer is a tool that allows you to eat other offers in the market. People shouldn't only buy your offer, they should need it, right? That's a big one, etc. You got to have upsells in order to increase that AOV. Remember, the upsells have to be bigger, faster, stronger, based on solution problem model. All this is in a book. Go read the book if you want the details. the offer should have 10x revenue. So if it's a $5 book, $50 AOV is your metric. Typically, we hit like 80% is good. So even if you get $40, you're good, right? Because typically your CPA will be like 20 to $30. But if you hit 10x, great, the better. And then how to name your offer, why the name matters. And then we have the generator, and that's it. And so we can have a few minutes for Q&A if you guys want. 10 minutes for Q&A, so that we'll cap it off in an hour. And then we got to go.
Yeah, first of all, before we do that, go to the Facebook group. For those of you guys that are live, there's a link in the chat, and just go post my main takeaway from day 3 of the 7-day fast start is or was, and just put the main takeaway. It helps us understand what's resonating with you guys, what you want to know more about, and starts a little bit of engagement. And like Alan said, we can do a little bit of Q&A, and I'm going to scroll up because I saw there were a couple of questions that came up throughout the presentation here. I think we've touched on this before, but Mary Sloan asked, do you always have a paid product first, or do you ever start with a free product?
No free products, Mary, ever. And the reason being is like, you want to have a transactional relationship, not a non-transactional relationship. So you have to vet people, right? And I had a discussion with a good buddy of mine the other day about, paid versus non-paid communities. And typically, like, what ends up happening is like, commercial versus non-commercial communities, right? And so like, you either have to vet them yourself, or the price has to vet them. What ends up happening is like, you have a spectrum of people, right? Now, one spectrum is free, and on the other side of the spectrum is expensive, right? And so like, on that spectrum, you'll have 10% of people will buy the most expensive thing you offer no matter what, and then you'll have like 20% they'll buy the cheapest thing you offer no matter what. In between is the range, which is called price elasticity. And then on one side you have free. And so typically people that tend to give you money, a lot of money later on, they don't respond to free, because they're like, well, I'm willing to pay, $5,000 to $10,000 for this stuff because of this, and if this is giving us for free, how valuable would it be, right? Like, would Louis Vuitton bags be worth a shit if you could just go in and get up one for free? They wouldn't, right? And so it's like, that's why Louis Vuitton bag is like $3,000 to $5,000, and a cheap handbag from China is like $10, right? That's a big difference. And so it's like, you never want to have a non-transactional relationship because you have time. You don't have enough time to just help them out. It's really, really freaking hard, right? So you always want to, every relationship you start with people, it should be a transactional relationship. Be it $1, be it $5, $10, it doesn't matter. The price, the intent of them buying they have to vet them,
Yeah, and with that said, this is sort of our preference, right? There are plenty of business models around the world where they operate on a free, leads generation model where you get somebody's contact information, they don't buy anything from you, but there is a very much systematic process in place to turn that lead into a paying customer. So you have to have that dialed in, and without that, then you're going to lose money so damn fast. And that's why people like myself would get into the webinar game and not make it work. That's why I could never make webinars work.
Yeah, the thing about leads, right? Those markets, like they pay a lot for leads, like insurance companies, et cetera, mortgage companies. Basically, they've maxed out their economics over the past 20 years. They figured out every way to skin that marketing economics, and they're basically, selling almost what's called a commodity, right? And so to them, they basically, work on leads, right? So they'll pay for leads because it's a lot easier to acquire leads than sales. So for example, like if you're getting a mortgage, right? It's like, let's say you get a mortgage for $500,000. Well, it's like, well, it's easier to get somebody to be a lead of that than to actually do a mortgage, right? So like companies and industries where it's lead centric, that's like super mature industries, right? So next question is, how can we achieve the 10x considering that you recommend? So again, Hugo, like 10x is basically a rule of thumb, right? And you have to look at how that works. And so I should actually create I can actually probably like create an equation where like the more you go up in price, the less that works. So like 47, on a 47, what you should do is have like a 197 upsell, and then like maybe like a 97 in B2C, right? But the reason for that is as a $47 buyer, your take rate is going to be higher, right? So I can tell you at 47, you can have a $497 upsell and you'll convert. In fact, like when we did 2-hour agency first, we had, it was a $37 thing and I wrote a $497 upsell and we had an 8% take rate, right? And so, yeah, like you can do that. So how can we achieve the 10x?
Didn't we cover the economic spreadsheet in video 1? Or
Yeah. I see his question. Yeah. So he's asking, his upsell is $47 and the book is $5. Yeah, just up that thing to 97, because what ends up happening is like upsells have massive price elasticity, right? So like they'll buy higher. So our upsell right now is $197, right? And so I know if we cut the price to 97, it's not going to convert twice as much. It might convert like 10% more, but it's like we're going to lose money. But if we increase it to 297, it's going to convert like maybe 20% less, but then we have a net gain of 30%, right? And so it's like that's how it works. So like as far as upsells goes, you should always test up instead of testing down, right? And especially like if you delay the button pop like we have. And so when it comes to delaying the button pop, you want to delay the button, the VSL, basically to the point where the price is announced. So they're fully have gone through the sales process. Yeah, and that'll alter your economics a lot, and then you'll be able to go out there and get a lot more customers.
A lot of good takeaways coming into the Facebook group, by the way. Mary says, has to be transactional relationship. Nemeth Promotions says, my main takeaway, I have a lot to learn. That's a good one. Brian says, my main takeaway, careful not to attract the wrong person by the name of your offer. Keep them coming. And what else we got for Q&A?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, sorry, guys. We got like maybe 5 more minutes. If you guys have any questions, whatever, feel free. We're open book. I mean, you know, we're very like transparent and honest about shit. It's like there's really nothing to like hide or like, you know, like when we sell the accelerator, our philosophy is like we're not going to sell you more information. We just help you implement. That's where our pitch comes from. So it's not like we're holding anything, you know, for back there. You know, there's really nothing else back there. It's just our time goes to helping people implement. That's what we sell. We don't really sell like, you know, there's no more secrets and shit, so to say, up there. It's just more like detail work, you know?
Yeah. So Brian asks, do you think there's a market for selling skills? We'll get Alan's take on it. But I mean, absolutely. You know, you're talking about a need. Every company has a need for sales. And so that's why, you know, there's a reason why there are a lot of sales offers out there. There's a lot of like, you know, Grant Cardones and Jordan Belforts that are teaching sales because it's a need for the business market.
Yeah, it's
just
a huge
competitive.
It's a huge need. Yeah, it's a very, very big need. Yeah, for sure. I mean, hell, you can probably make $1 million business just teaching, helping people sell. Yeah, yeah, selling is big. It's
for sure.
Like in any B2B space, you got like what? You have operations, you have like sales, you have marketing, you have advertising, you have HR. So any of those categories certainly can be sold.
Yeah, the beauty about sales though is it applies to, you know, all businesses, no matter the size, and it's also sexy in the sense that that's the thing that's going to bring in money. So like, you know, that you know, you get customers with success, that's what they're going to be able to show. It's easy to justify buying into sales training. And like I've talked about, I think on previous calls or in previous videos, I made the mistake of putting out a course on automation when I was young and I didn't understand all this. And I didn't realize that it's hard to justify that. Like that's a hard purchase to justify because you can't really see the ROI on it. But it's not very hard to justify a purchase on sales because you go, okay, one customer is worth $5,000. All I need is one more, and I can pay this guy $5,000 for his consulting program or whatever.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this game has many layers, you know. So it's like it's layers. Like, and you know, the sad thing out there, it's like this concept of the, you know, derivatives and stuff. A lot of, I don't know. I don't really buy a lot of stuff out there that people teach, but like one pattern is really interesting that we do see a lot is like, you know, a lot of these guys are like, you know, I'm not going to mention names. I saw somebody out there say, you know, we sold like 4,000 high ticket clients, right? And I'm like, where are the testimonials? Where are the case studies? Like, I don't see that shit. Like they have like 3, 4, right? And I'm like, that's crazy, right? And you know how it works, guys? Like, I'll be honest with you, the way it works with a lot of these guys, it's kind of very disingenuous, right? Like, they'll say high ticket stuff, and like somebody that has a lot of momentum will come in a program, and basically they'll go and like, you know, help that person and basically ride off that momentum. It has very, you know, the market success out there of taking somebody from zero to results is like fucking like very hard, right? And that's why you'll see a lot of these gurus like, you know, there's this ratio of like mass amount of sales with very little results, you know, and it's like that shit doesn't add up, right? Like imagine like Apple selling iPhones that didn't work, right? You don't go buy it again, right? And that's why this whole fucking space, right? This whole space is all about get more clients, get more clients, get more clients. Like and I'm like, how come you guys don't know how to fucking keep clients? It's like, what do you always need clients more? It's like if you get them, you know, you need a capacity problem, right? So everybody's focused on solving the marketing problem. Like what you really have to focus on is solving the capacity problem, right? Like how to have capacity problems, not marketing problems. And so that's a big thought in itself, you know, because like your business should be architected so you get people results and stuff like that. So you keep clients, you keep them, they continue to give you money, etc. and stuff like that. You take care of them, you help them out, you do all the right things, and you basically, have people that give you money for years to come, versus just having this thing where it's like churn and burn, And so that's why like in this space, on Facebook, it's like 400,000 offers about get clients, and it's like, well, how the hell? Why do you guys always need clients if you can't, if you guys got to keep them? Exactly. So yeah. All right, guys. So hour and a half in.
Let's shut it down.
Yeah, tomorrow we're gonna do the next day. We want to get this bear off our back. So this is day 3, and we're gonna do day 4 tomorrow. Same time, same place. Day 4 is tomorrow. Friday we have the accelerator call, so we'll skip it. So next next Monday we're gonna do day 5.
Yep.
Wednesday we're gonna do day 6, and Thursday we're gonna do day 7, and then we'll be done. So show up, tell your friends, bring your friends, everybody's welcome, and we're gonna end this call, and then we're going to upload this sucker to the Facebook group, let everybody get some value out of it. Even the people that didn't buy, right? Even the people that didn't buy, because you offer value first and then get paid later, right? All right, guys, so pleasure talking to you as always. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next call. Bye.
See you guys.